What is happening, guys? Welcome back. So we're back on with doing a little bit on the Polo, and in this episode we need to look at getting the stance a little bit better and getting it a little bit lower to the ground. If you've been following the series, you'll know that in a previous episode we'd been out and bought some TA Technics coilovers to lower the car on. The reason that we went for them, yes, they're a sort of budget coilover. The reason we went for them, we found an article from 2015 of one of these cars that was featured, and the ride height was exactly where we wanted it to be. And in the article it said he was running TA Technics coilovers with a shortened spring. So we thought, sad, we'll buy them, they'll come in on the budget, we'll fit them, which we did. And with no spring whatsoever in, no bump stop, nothing, with the shot completely bottomed out, we were sitting where we wanted to. So there were absolutely no way that they were going to work. We can't raise the turrets, because, as a few people have said, because they are pretty much up against the bonnet as it is. So we can't raise those. There wasn't really a lot we could do. So did a bit of digging again, and then I had a message from a guy called Lou, Instagram's here, who is actually the guy who sold me the engine for the Lupo when we replaced that back in the Lupo GTI, saying that the Lupo and Impreza guys, when they want to get low, what they do is use coilovers from a GC8 Subaru Impreza, which is pretty random, but he showed me pictures of what people have done and got them down, and they look pretty good and they look like they may work. So I got told to use them, and he said, yeah, Maxpeedingrods were the ones that everyone uses. So Maxpeedingrods have been contacting me for quite a while about wanting to send me stuff. One little choice email to them, and they were in the post, and they have arrived, and they sat down here, and I've got to say, first impressions of them, they actually don't look too badly made. So yeah, fully threaded body. This bottom bit obviously threads on. You've got a locking ring there, locking ring. The spring, then you've got a bearing inside that top mount, and you've got a pillow ball top mount as there where to give you your angles, and you've got camber adjustability on them. And I mean, yeah, looking at them, full set of 4 camber adjustable top mounts all the way around. Think the retail on them is about 260 quid. How is it possible to make them for that? Now, they're probably not going to be the most amazing set of coilovers for track driving, for a fast road car, anything like that, but we're building a stance car essentially, so we're not really bothered about that. It'll ride like a dog anyway because we want it as low as we can, but it's going to look cool, which is all we care about. On them as well, you've got dampening adjustability, which is just, yeah, mind-boggling that for 260 quid for a full set of coilovers, you get all of that lot. So massive thanks to Maxpeedingrods for sending me them over. We made a start on getting them fitted, which wasn't the easiest task, and we knew it wasn't going to be. We knew they were going to be a bit of messing about. So this side here is still on the TA Technics Mark II Polo coilover, and we need to come down over 2 inches. So we set about making these fit, which has been this morning's job, which we have now managed to do, and we've got it sitting there. Still got a little bit that we need to go down, but I think that's as far down as we're going to get it. And if we pull the back up, it should still look pretty nice, and we pull the arches, get it sitting, it should still be nice. It's still going to be a very low static car, and the sump is very, very close to the floor. So to make these coilovers work, there's a lot of work involved in sorting them out. And the first thing that we need to do is work out how we're going to get the Mk1 Golf hub, because that's what we're going to use to work with the lower mounting points on the coilovers. We've got the Mk1 Golf hub, but we need the Mark II Polo hub flange to fit inside it. So first problem was a bearing that makes the two together. Measured the internal diameter of the hub and the external diameter of the hub flange, put it into Google, 34 by 64 by 37, so 64 on the outside, 34mm in the middle, 37mm depth. Ordered these, which are from a trailer. So yeah, they're the right size, bearings are bearing, so we've got them. We're going to get them pressed in, fitted, get the hub flanges in, and then we've got plenty of other stuff to do to the coilovers, which I'll explain as we go along. And there we go, simple as that. So we've got Mk1 Golf hub, we've got snap rings in, we've got the trailer bearing, and then we've got the Mark II Polo hub flange fitted in, all nice, all tight, spins, does what it needs to do. Right, TA Technics are off. If anyone's interested in them, hit me up. Brand new, only been fitted on the car to roll it around the workshop. Hub flanges are fitted with brand new bearings as well. They're for sale. Yeah, if you're interested, hit me up. We've taken off the top mount that we bought. So the one that we bought was a Silver Project top mount that came from Poland or somewhere, I believe it was. And you've got, yeah, that bit, which is the ball, pillow ball, basically, that allows it to move side to side, and the bearing. So all we want out of it is this here, which is a shouldered nut, which we may actually not need this now. I'm thinking about it. We'll put that to one side. We might not need that. We might be able to do it ever so slightly differently because I've changed the way that I was doing the top mounts before. We were using these as a complete before, but we're not. This is me talking as I'm thinking as I'm going along. So we've got the coilovers on the bench now. So we've got a rear and a front. Now we want to take parts where we want the spring off of this one, and we want that little bit of the top mount to go onto that one. So we'll strip these down, swap everything over that we want, and then move on to the next bit. So we've got parts swapped over from the rear coilover to the front. So we've got the rear spring on the front coilover. We've also used part of the top mount from the rear coilover as well, which is basically that part there. It'd bolt into the car. It has this bearing mounted onto that. So we've removed that. We're going to use that on this coilover mounted to that, just like that. This is the opposing part for that. So this is essentially the new top mount. So that bit goes up onto the underside of the strut tower, and on top of it you've got this here, which acts as the top part of the top mount. And then we just have to modify the strut tower ever so slightly with these little notches here to allow the bolts to pass through, because the PCD of the holes is a little bit bigger than the hole in the strut tower. We also have to we've made this, which is a shim, because the width of this is less than the width of this. That's 20 mil, that's 25 mil. We've made 1 out of 5 mil, but we're going to make 2 out of 2.5 mil. So put that back into the centre. This is just for sort of mocking up purposes. That will be made again as well, because it's all off centre, as you can see. We'll get that plasma out so it's nice and neat. But to be able to mount this top mount, or bolt this top mount onto the top, if we used the original nut and fixed it on, you can see the diameter of it. It's not going to allow this to move and do what it needs to do. So this is where that part of the Mark II Project Silver Project, whatever they are, top mounts comes into play. So this here is a rebated or step nut or whatever it is, and that basically sits inside that spherical bearing of that one and allows it to have movement. Now that's M12, that is M14. So all I did on the one that is on the car is we got a 12.5 mil drill bit, drilled it out, and we then got an M14 by 1.5 tap and tapped it out, and it seems to have done the job, because then you've got the nice shouldered part there with the right thread. That other one's bolted down nicely, so we're going to do that to that one, and then we should be able to start getting some of this mounted in the car. There we go, drilled, tapped out, still got plenty of meat around the edge, and you've got the full nut at the top as well. So, get this tried on, see if it holds all the bearings together, and get it all mounted in the car. Right, before we can put this side in the car, we need to change the drive shaft. So I've ordered this drive shaft here, which is an SKF VK JC 1128, which is a 729mm long drive shaft. The guy that's done the engine limb, who's done a few of these conversions, said that was what we needed to buy. It's lined up that end. If you look down this end, it's a bit longer, a little bit different. I don't quite understand why these flanges look like they're in about the same place. This might be a little bit short, I don't know. But that's what he told me to buy, so that's what we've bought. So we'll get that fitted first, and then we can throw this suspension on. So, new drive shaft is on, bolts up, does what it needs to do. Coilover is on, and I've just notched the chassis here. Now, we'll be going back in here with a piece of 2-3mm walled steel tube that will weld to the inside, the outside, to put the strength back in to this chassis leg that we've taken out. Yeah, so, get some nuts and bolts together, and we'll see if we can get all this together on this side, and then we'll try dropping it on the floor, seeing where it sits. There we go then. Struts are both bolted onto the car, bolted to the hub. We do need to still have a little bit of a play with the camber and get the wheels sitting exactly where we want to do, which is a job that I'm going to jump on to try and sort out in a little bit. Steering. So this obviously on here is where, on the Mk1 Golf, where the tie rod normally mounts to. But as you can see, we're quite away from that. So what we're going to have to do to get over that and get these connected to all of the suspension is we're going to have to get something cut out that we're going to then weld onto this collar on here. Now this collar comes completely off, it's just a piece of metal, it's not going to affect the damper or anything like that from heat, so we need to weld one of those on. What we've done is designed a bracket like that. So we've got quite a few different sets of struts, so I've basically cut this piece off of an original strut so I could get my centres and work out where my centres were so that everything would be basically in the same place. We've then drawn this and designed this up, which Jack from Dropworks is plasma cutting out for me, as well as the top mount plates as well. This here will mount to this part of the collar and we'll weld it onto this so it'll be nice and strong, nice and tight. This end here, inside it, you've got this end, which is what the track rod end goes onto, and that side is bigger than that side because it's a taper. It's a tapered hole. So inside of these, I cut this end off and then started cutting away at the material, and in it is actually this complete like solid piece of machined steel. So what I've done is put a bolt through the middle, put it into a drill, and basically use the grinder to turn it. It isn't perfectly round and perfectly concentric, but it doesn't need to be. It's not something that's going to be turning and need to be balanced. As long as it fits in the hole, we can weld it in. We'll be okay. So they are going to get welded into those, which means that we then need to weld this piece onto the strut, but we need to get it in the correct angle because something called Ackerman. So if you look at the angle of that, and this is on an angle, and also there's all sorts of different things going on. So what I've done is made a bit of a jig that hopefully is going to mean that we get the relationship of this hub face and this point in the same position. So basically what I've done, we've got an old Mk2 Golf wheel, we've got a brake disc, and we bolted the hub flange into here so that it was as though it was mounted to the car. We've then welded a nut into a piece of box section, onto another piece of box section, which is welded onto the wheel. Basically, that sits in there. There's a long bolt that goes through here, that then threads and bolts into there, which will give us the correct angle of everything needs to be, and we can adjust the height to get it exactly where we want, sitting in relationship onto this, but the angle from that face to where that point wants to be should be the same, or at least it works out in my head, which you'll see when we try and get them on. Hopefully it's going to work. I've tried to build a little bit of adjustability into them. Yeah, we'll be doing this sort of Monday next week when Jack has got the parts machined out and sent over to us. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do that before then TA Technics go, which will give us a reference point. So those are the bits that need to be done. Another problem that we're going to have is the lower arm is on rather an angle, and it's a little bit too much of an angle because the ball joints are bottomed out. They are maxed out all the way. So we're going to have to use some ball joint extenders, which I've had mixed reviews on, but we haven't really got a choice. We're going to have to use ball joint extenders. So I'm trying to get hold of some of those at the moment as well. But for the most part, the suspension's on and it is looking as though it's going to work. We've got adjustability in everything. We can't go any lower, but we can certainly bring it up higher if we need to, and give us a little bit of play back into the suspension. So shall we get the wheels on it, get it on the floor and see where it's sitting? So I don't think this is actually fully down because it's still actually sat on the ramp slightly, but I've got no more bits of wood. But we are not a million miles away from the ride height of where we want to be. The front is pretty much, I think, where we're going to get it running. The back will lift ever so slightly just to get it sitting sort of level. We'll have the same gap from wheel to arch, front and rear, but it's definitely looking a hell of a lot better than it did before, and it's a lot closer to what we want it to be and where we want it to be sitting. And in the colour I've got chosen, this is going to look absolutely mega. So I want to say a thank you to John Ludwig. If you know the guy, he's pretty well known in the car scene over in America. He did a Polo a few years ago, imported a German one over into the States, and he put it on bags, but he built custom suspension. I've been chatting back and forth with him a little bit about the way that he did it. I've watched a few of his videos, so yeah, that's where I've got a bit of my knowledge from, or guesswork from, of his videos as to how to do sort of the Mark 1 conversion on this. So yeah, thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate all your help with it. Hopefully we can make this one work and turn out as well as yours did. So we've got a few more bits to sort out on this, but it looks as though the suspension idea is going to work. We're going to be able to get it to work. Yeah, we just need ball joint extenders and a few bits to turn up that Jack is machining, and hopefully a day or so's work and this will be buttoned up and we know that it's going to work. While I'm waiting for those bits, I'm going to move on to do something else, which is some parts that were sent over by our friends at Heritage Parts Centre, which are a pair of Mk1 Golf front wings. So on this car, obviously we've modified the rear arches, so they're a bit more squared off and a bit more Mk1 Golf-ish, but the front is still bubbled and they don't match and it doesn't look right. There's a car I saw a picture of not long ago who'd done a similar thing, squared off the rears, fronts were bubbled, and it just didn't look right. So we're going to take the front arches, we'll cut the arches off those wings and put them onto these wings and hopefully match the rear, gives a bit more width so we can turn while we're low. Yeah, but that'll be in another episode. We shall leave this one here then, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Until next time, enjoy.